Welcome to CityCast Denver, the show about the city that always looks good in photographs. Some people have that problem. They just don't look good, you know?
Some people
Paintings,
always look good.
Photos, some people just don't. Exactly.
I mean, Denver's got a lot of good angles. You know,
You can't take a bad photo of it.
If you're like from the Denver Museum of Nature and Science looking over the lake, it's great.
Mm-hmm.
My side of town, if you're
City
at
Park Boathouse?
City Park Boathouse. If you're at Barnum Park, there's like a great spot where you can see the whole city. There's lots of good spots. It's a good looking city.
Yeah, some people just have that problem though, you know? Like some angles, they don't like the way they look.
Are you worried, Paul?
No.
I was like,
You're looking great. You're looking great.
Thank you. Wasn't asking for that. Happy to get it. I'm Paul Karolyi. It's Friday, March 28th. We're coming to you live on tape, recorded at the beautiful Dude IDK Studios here, New Digs.
Very nice.
In the Skyland neighborhood.
yes,
I learned.
Skyland. Mm-hmm.
Skyland.
I love that name.
That's
It's
the
a cool
official neighborhood. Isn't that great?
Skyland.
Yeah. It's good.
You can see us. You can see us
On YouTube.
on YouTube.
now. That's why we're
Bree is
filming
here.
this.
Host Bree Davies with me as usual. Hey, Bree.
Hi.
Do you want to talk about the video with the cameras?
No.
Do you want to address the
Nope.
viewing?
Do not. Just on it. Just gonna keep doing it.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about that comment we got last week that was like so ominous. So that's what you guys look like. I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry. You're welcome. I don't know.
I mean, I'll let you in on it. Normally, it's worse. This is
Fair.
the
No,
after.
that's fair.
This is with prep and time.
And we like, well, you brushed
you're
your hair.
welcome.
I brushed my hair. Things we don't normally do. So
How was your week, Bree?
it was good. I don't know. I don't even remember. I feel like we make a show and then I don't know what the next day is until we're in it. So
Well, we got good stuff to talk about today, and we got a great guest.
Lots of news this week.
Really fantastic guest. One of our favorite guests.
Oh, thank you.
She is a popular former mayoral candidate. She is a progressive champion, and now the executive director of Women Uprising. Welcome back,
Thank
Lisa
you.
Calderón.
I'm so glad to be here during my birthday week.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, my
Congratulations.
birthday month. I've been celebrating it all month.
For you. How are you celebrating?
Lots of happy hours.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's the best one?
Actually, surprisingly, Kona Grill in Cherry Creek has a great indoor-outdoor patio.
They do.
And their service is amazing. So that's been a new favorite.
That is a great
Yeah.
tip. I've never been there.
Oh,
Have
really?
you been there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I used to work at the mall. We went to their happy hour all the time.
It's the one that's in the mall.
Yeah, but it's like on the out, it's like on the side, on the First Avenue side, so you can enter from the outside, but it's great. I agree. I think it's really good.
Bree turned me on to the restaurant inside the...
Nordstrom Cafe. I don't know what it's really called.
It's
That's
so
just what
good.
I call it.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I've gone back a few times just for that.
Service
It's kind
there
of a
is
little
great.
hidden secret.
Totally.
Yeah.
I
The
love
view
it.
is nice.
You got to walk through the, pajama department together. It's great.
Lisa, I want to ask you a question. I think I might have asked you before. Maybe your opinion has changed. Chipotle or illegal Pete's? We've been talking about this on the show recently a bit.
You know what? No. El Taco de Mexico.
Okay.
None of the
the
other-
real Denverite answer.
Yeah.
What if they franchised El Taco de Mexico?
Oh.
It would lose, I think,
I know.
a little, no.
It has to be those women. that
Yeah.
crew.
They're real boss ladies in there. That's what I
Exactly.
like about it. You go in
Exactly.
there and they're like, they don't mess around. They mean business. They're going to make what you order and then you
That's
just-
it.
Yeah. No BS. I agree. The vibe is one of a kind.
All right. Good answer.
kind.
Good answer, Lisa. Politician. We can tell. All right, let's get to our top story. As the country was reeling over the news this week that the Trump administration officials leaked official plans for a military strike in Yemen, Denverites were already talking about the encrypted texting app Signal. CBS Colorado revealed that our mayor, Mike Johnston, has been communicating on the encrypted messaging app to a group of his top advisors since January. Their group chat had a name.
Strike Force.
Strike Force.
Strike Force.
I
What do
wonder
we
if
think?
they used emojis in it, like the Yemen signal debacle, where it was like fire emoji.
I bet they did.
Well, it's on brand for him, right? Because he likes coming up with these like tiger teams.
I remember Tiger
About
Teams.
that.
It's so
That's
stupid.
probably the emoji they use. The tiger.
I know. I want to know if there were emojis in that chat as well.
100%.
Yeah.
I know.
100%.
We need a Coral request to see the actual text.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
We'll talk about it. What was your first impression of this, Lisa, this Signal thing?
Hypocritical. Absolutely hypocritical. I mean, if we look at the parallels between what's going on in the federal government and what's going on in Denver, aside from Trump's craziness and honestly daily trauma, I've been trying to kind of restrict the amount of news that's coming in because it's so negative all of the time, right? Mm-hmm. Something else is being destroyed, dismantled, etc. But when you look at the arguments for the criticism of the Trump administration, the defense people, those same arguments could be made with the Hancock forwarding to Johnston administration, because a lot of these are practices that happen in the Hancock administration. So
the lack of transparency, you mean?
The lack of transparency, but also this is a form of how they communicate and how they keep things from being correct, right? Through the Colorado Open Records Act, but their own records detention policies. So this wasn't new to me, actually.
Really?
No. I mean, apparently the strike force started in January with a lawsuit from the Trump-affiliated law firm. But Denver, from the Hancock administration to the Johnston administration, have been using Signal. How do I know? I'm a plaintiff who have been suing the city of Denver, now going on 8 years. So it has been very hard to get documents because we know that they communicate this way. I've
actually heard it's quite common in politics generally for people and elected officials.
Yeah.
The Hillary emails thing was 8 years ago, but I guess it was common then. Like, it didn't seem like out of the ordinary.
There's a lot of like aides and folks that work in politics that if they want to tell me something, will ask to go to Signal to do that because I am a reporter and they don't, like it's a little different when it's internally in an administration. But what I thought was interesting was I believe Johnston's administration's argument was the concerns about things changing under Trump. And this was like a protection, a method of protection to continue the work that they were doing around immigration. Because as we've seen, he's making good on his promises about mass deportations. And so that was their argument, right? Was like, we don't know how the Trump administration is going to deal with what's happening in Denver. So that's why we're taking this to a private encrypted channel.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that what the Trump people are saying?
Right. Like, I'm
right?
not saying it's a good argument. I was just trying to like place it like that's why that's the reasoning they said for using it in this instance.
Right.
Yeah, the immigration piece we should talk about, because I made the same assumption. When I read the article, I was like, oh, they're trying to hide information because they don't want to be incriminated because there's this pressure from the federal government, get federal funding taken away. I get that. We've been talking about that a lot. But when I talked to the mayor's office this week, they say that's been misinterpreted. And then I reread the CBS story and there's no immigration specific anything. And if you look at the quote from Johnston's Director of Strategic Initiatives, Joshua Posner, he set up this was set up at a meeting called Strikeforce Introduction the week before the inauguration. And he said, we're going to use Signal to communicate with Strikeforce so that communication remains encrypted and secure, parentheses, and messages auto-delete. It was about Trump generally. It was not about immigration specifically.
Interesting. Okay.
Which I thought was really interesting because then it opens up all these other issues that potentially they would be communicating around.
Well, and, I commend Brian Moss for his reporting and staying on this administration around, again, the hypocrisy of saying that we're going to be transparent and yet hiding things in these chats. It's also unlawful. And, I'm a fan of Signal. Right. I think, and when you look at the origins of Signal, right, it is around someone who was very concerned about fascism and government spying on everyday citizens and protecting our First Amendment rights. So we know why it was created, and it's not making money, right? It's there's a foundation behind it.
Behind Signal, is that true?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So it was intended for people like us who really do speak up and who are targeted by the government, et cetera. So,
and tools for like a tool for organizing as well.
A tool for organizing. So I'm a fan of Signal. Well, but when we are talking about public officials who have an obligation to maintain records so that we can see the public business, that's one pot there. But a whole other pot comes in when they are under essentially a litigation hold, right? So they are now being warned that they could be sued. And as a result of that, you cannot destroy any records.
That's what I thought. I was like, there was no one in the room that was like, auto delete seems like a bad idea.
It took them 2 weeks, I think, to have this. They changed their minds.
That's wild to me.
In the middle of January, before the inauguration, they decided to do the strike force. And then at the end of January, they changed their minds and they started keeping the texts. So there's a 2-week period where texts disappeared. But now, according to the administration, the texts are there. They actually have 2 group chats going. They have Strike Force and then they have media monitoring. So I'm sure we'll be in the chat tomorrow. Hi, Mike. But they use it. They say they use it. The messages stay. They say it can be Korad, and they disagree that it's illegal. They say so. That seems like it.
They disagree with the use of Signal being illegal.
Correct.
Okay.
They say it's legal. It can be Korad.
Okay, so does the Trump administration, right? So that's what I'm saying. That there are these parallels here.
Yeah.
And part of being a progressive to me is being true to your progressive values. That both parties have a problem with buying elections and having too much influence by corporations, et cetera. And both parties have a problem with transparency and revealing their business to the public. Both parties do not like to be criticized and will go after people who criticize them. Ask me how I know. That's
a different show.
But it really isn't, because everyone should be concerned that if you are being discussed among government officials, you should have a right to get that information, whether it's on Signal, whether it's through email. And the excuses and the parallels are that, one, it's a groupthink mentality. Like, did no one in either group say, we shouldn't be doing this? This is probably not a good idea. We should be using more formal and secure ways of discussing government business. And with the Johnston administration, the excuse has been, well, there's nothing actionable. We're not taking actionable steps. Mm-hmm. Well, you're having discussions leading up to actionable steps that should be open to the public to scrutinize. So we have groupthink, we have non-secure communication channels when it comes down to that people can download Signal on their laptops, and those we know, are not secure necessarily. People can hack into them. Mm-hmm. So we have a security issue there. The other issue is, again, that litigation hold. Now, Denver has been saying for quite a long time before Johnston that our text messages are not, they're not subject to the same records caretaking as emails. That opens the door for a lot of city business being done via Signal, because they actually did a carve out for electronic communications.
Isn't that interesting the way that happens? Like, technology advances and then the norms around politics change, and then you have to keep having the same fights over and over again.
Yes.
Or that it's just like never really quite catching up to it. Like,
you
know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't know. I'm thinking about all the other ways we can communicate now. Mm-hmm. Discord servers, totally. I don't know, Instagram messaging, Facebook groups. There's all these different ways, and this just happens to be one that, obviously folks, like you said, use for organizing, for privacy reasons, but it just, I think it just shows how far behind we are, how far behind the politics are to the technology. Because I don't know. I want to know what the government is doing in my.
Always
voted to elect these people.
We're paying for it.
Yeah, like I agree. The groupthink thing is crazy to me because I just imagine there was no one in that room that was like, this seems like a bad idea. There was somebody, they just weren't saying it. They were saying it to their dog or their boyfriend or whatever. Like, we're going with this, but they weren't saying it in the room. You know.
They did check themselves.
Right. Well,
2 weeks later, they did check themselves.
But why did it take 2 weeks?
Reporting.
2 weeks, yeah.
I don't know. I wish I'd asked them.
Imagine how many signal messages that is. That's a lot of information.
Well, and also the acting city attorney was in the Signal chat.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Well, and I think that that's part of the story that has not gotten enough traction here. You have somebody who is heading the legal department for the city of Denver, who is going along with this groupthink, apparently, and isn't saying, we need to shut this down. Like, we are violating, or an argument can be made that we are violating Colorado open records laws, our own memo that came out in December from their own security, from Denver's security head, who said, Signal should only be used for personal, not for city business. So why didn't anyone say, city attorney's office, we need to shut this down? The police chief, Ron Thomas, had enough, wherewithal to say, no, I'm going to take a pass on that. So did, surprisingly, Armando Saldate, the head of the public safety department. And probably because they're more on the tip of the spear for litigation, like they're always being called around cases because Denver police are always being sued around things. So they had enough smarts to say, no, we decline. Why didn't our city attorney?
That's a fair question.
I also think like Cora requests are not easy things to do. I think that's the other part of it is like, it's not just like willy nilly. You could just go somewhere and they're going to hand you a file. Like a lot of times it's process, it's money. I think about other states where I have friends who are journalists that have had to spend hundreds of dollars and dozens of hours trying to access basic information. We're adding another layer of difficulty to that for the public.
100%.
And journalists are having to try to do that for the public. For the public good. And like, I think that's what Brian Moss was doing with this was like, we get a tip like that and we're like, okay, something is going on here, but you're just adding another layer of difficulty to that transparency too.
Yeah,
100%.
The city doesn't make it easy to get information. And that's what you're saying. Sometimes you have to say the magic words in order in a certain phrase. Otherwise they'll say, oh, no, we don't have it. And we're going to charge you for our time for looking for it.
Yeah. I feel like every journalist also has that like horror story of like, I tried to go find this basic information and it took me 3 months to get an email and everything was redacted, Yeah. So,
and that's where Signal is helpful for like whistleblowers in the city, right?
Sure.
They're like, look for this phrase and ask for this, and then let's make sure it disappears. But they're not using city resources to do that, right? They're trying to shine a light on the business of going on in the city that's hidden, and they want people to see it. Here's the other problem, and which seems contradictory. So Jordan Fuja, I think, is the spokesperson for the city of Denver, who said, we are not obligated to retain these electronic, AKA text messages. We're not the caretakers of that. That's not an official record, essentially. But we are subject to Cora, and we're subject to litigation holds. Well, guess what? If the messages disappear, you can't Cora them. And you can't hold them for litigation. So it's talking out of both sides of their mouths to say, yeah, we will comply with, a litigation hold request, but not if it's not there.
Yeah.
And essentially they made it to be not there.
Yeah, that 2 weeks, that could be a problem for them. I mean, that we could see a lawsuit about that. Yeah. I have to tell you all this story.
Okay.
And then we can go. But we were talking about wanting to get the information, right? And this is who I talked to at the mayor's office, this is Jordan, the other day. And I had this Jeffrey Goldberg Atlantic thing in my mind, the Trump's Signal.
The journalist that was
the leak.
Put into
Goldberg
the chat.
Gets added to the chat.
Yeah.
And I was like, I told Jordan, and asked her specifically, we've been off the record. I haven't quoted her directly. I've been speaking generally, but I asked her directly. I said, I want this on the record. Here is my question. What the Trump administration did essentially was transparency. They added a journalist to the chat. Can I be in the chat? Can I be on the strike force? Why aren't you adding me to the chat? And she said, no, but if you want to Cora, you can. And I said,
Ooh.
I can do that. It will take me longer to respond to the texts. And she said, you can Cora if you want. And that's where we left it.
You can Cora if you want, and you have to pay for that.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not, again, it is not easily accessible information.
Yeah. So
I've been seeing these hilarious just like commentary about the Yemen chat where it's someone's like, you know, when you get a group chat about a baby shower and you're like, oh yeah, somebody's, I don't know that area code, but they clearly have relatives in Pittsburgh. That's fine. You don't think a single person in that chat was like, well, who's this number?
Who's JF?
Or who's this number that
JG?
doesn't even have an identifier on it? Like, yeah, anyway.
Well, and there's all these
like
congressional Democrats outraged, as they should be, and demanding answers. Where is the outrage for Mayor Johnston's strike force? I don't hear Denver City Council saying an investigation. How did this happen? Why did it happen? There was a litigation hold. We need to ask these questions. And so in both situations, there's been a lack of accountability. And
well, I think it's because people like it. I think the immigration spin makes it sympathetic. I think the citizens of Denver want the mayor's texts to be private from the Trump administration because they support his more welcoming approach.
Well, and this is where progressives stand up and say that, you know, absolutely what Trump is doing with immigrants, with Jeanette Vizquera is vile, right? That is intended to, again, traumatize our community, make us fearful, etc. Both things can be true. That is horrific of what's going on with our immigrant community. And it is also a violation of, the open records laws. And we can do both, right? We can call out both. I think voters are more savvy than saying, yeah, we're going to ignore the bad acts of Johnston because we agree with the ends of protecting people and not having them snatched from their homes and their schools and their jobs. And that's the classic pitfall that Democrats often fall into.
Making the compromise
and ignoring the bad behavior from Democrats. Side. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a hard question right now for Democrats. I mean, we've talked about it a lot and we're going to keep talking about it. But we're going to go to a break right now and then we're going to talk about something else. All right, we're back. Our hot topic this week is homelessness, specifically the mayor's ongoing work to end street homelessness in his first term. That's his goal. We've been following it. And there were a couple of interesting developments recently. Number one, the auditor reported on some accountability issues. And number two, the city council took a surprising vote on Monday. We're going to talk about both. But I think we'll start with the auditor to get a sense of the big picture of how this project is going. Here are the quick findings from the auditor's report. According to Axios Denver, there is no clear system existing to track cleanup costs of encampments, monitor contracts, or verify services are delivered. Property storage is an issue. So belongings seized from encampments lack oversight, whether it's secure or accessible. Daily coordination meetings about encampment actions aren't documented, leaving key decisions without a paper trail. Those are highlights. There's plenty more. What did you all think about the auditor's report?
Why has it taken us 2 years and we still don't have answers from when Mayor Johnston launched his, initially it was House 1,000. I'm losing track.
It was
now.
House 1,000. Now it's all in Mile High.
Right.
Yeah.
And right after he was elected, right, he declared a state of emergency on homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
You can't tell me that 2 years later, we have no idea how much money was spent. I want to see the receipts. They know how much money they're spending. They know how much money they've taken from other budgets in the city to shift to all in Mile High. Why aren't they telling us? There's what's that group, Common Sense Institute?
Mm-hmm.
So that conservative think tank who put out these astronomical numbers, and then you have the mayor's office saying, "Oh no, that's way too high." Well, then give us the actual number. And we're paying for it as taxpayers. There's no excuse to not have the receipts. I want to see them.
Bree, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been a concern from the beginning. We're just going back to that conversation about a lack of transparency. Yeah. And I'm seeing a little bit in this situation, there was criticism of Johnston's approach during the campaign trail that it was going to be too much like Hancock's, too much like the previous administration. And unfortunately, I think this kind of proves that to be a little bit true. Is like, what has changed? What is different? Other than the visible homelessness is gone for some neighborhoods. But the money is still a question. And I think that was also a big question before the money started getting spent. Where is this money going to go? Yeah. How is this? I mean, think about the affordable housing that we voted on. People voted against it, and people in Denver care about affordable housing. And the biggest complaint or concern I heard from folks was there's a lack of transparency around how the money is going to be spent. So I think it's just an unfortunate thing that the Johnston administration is going to need to address here soon is like, we care about homelessness. We also want to know where all this money is going.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. And then it's also like, I mean, for our purposes, our job is to like help people understand the city and what's happening. And like, if we don't know how much it costs, we can't really evaluate the impact because there's so many different rival like theories on how to, homelessness is a really hard problem.
It's very complex.
Like the contexts are so different in different cities. So like you can talk about other places, but it's about relationships and each individual has such a different.
It's that frustrating part of the conversation around homelessness where they look at other cities and go, well, Houston solved it. Model. Salt Lake City solved it. Las Vegas solved it by putting people in parking lots. Like there's no easy sell on that. And that's the hard part about a complex conversation around homelessness is you can't just say we spent this amount of money and this many people were housed.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and seriously, how many times can the mayor's point person on homelessness, Cole Chandler, go before city council and say, we don't know, but we're doing great things, and have Councilwoman Stacey Gilmore like, where's the money? Like she even, I think, resigned from the housing committee because she was not getting answers, and they're still not getting answers. So I just wonder, how can they go up in front of city council week after week and say the same thing over and over again? And I mean, I think everybody knows by now. They just don't want to tell the number. You cannot run a city and not know how much you are spending on certain initiatives.
Especially something as big as that, right?
Yeah.
We're not talking about like the park's flower budget or whatever.
Yeah. And the results are tricky right now. I mean, you talk about the visible homelessness. I agree. I think that's the biggest change there because their policy is we do encampment sweeps and when we can offer housing, and then we don't let those encampments get rebuilt, which has turned out to be really key. And you can see it downtown.
And it impacts everything. I mean, even the flower budget in the parks got cut back. The DMV hours got cut back. So they know some numbers about some things to make cuts in other areas. They're just not telling us.
And then in terms of the how much street homelessness there is, his progress to his stated goal in his campaign website from 2 years ago. He said more than 1,300 people are sleeping on the streets, according to the point-in-time count that year. In January 2024, the 2025 count is not out yet. 2024, the count was 1,273. So we've gone from more than 1,300 when he was campaigning to January 2024, which is probably, I don't know how far in. I mean, the data, it's hard because it's still pretty new is the thing with him, but it's not a huge impact so far.
And in Colorado, we know, yes, it's the trajectory is going up. It's not going down. And the Johnston administration counts different populations differently, right? So migrants get counted separately from the unhoused count. The Denverite also has done excellent reporting on family homelessness.
Yeah, that piece they did this week was really helpful.
The just the lack of resources available if you're a family and you want and need to stay together. There just really are not good options out there.
Well, that's a perfect segue to the next piece of this, which is this Salvation Army contract.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest contractor to provide support services to folks experiencing homelessness in the city. And on Monday night, City Council, a lot of people said this was a surprise. I want to know if you all were surprised, but City Council surprisingly voted 10-1 to reject a $3 million contract that would have provided services to families specifically.
It was surprising to me, and it wasn't. The vote was a little bit surprising to me. 10-1 is saying city council as a whole, minus Councilman Flynn, who represents Bear Valley. We could have a conversation about how homelessness impacts there. But all of them basically said, we're not signing off on another multi-million-dollar contract to a contractor we don't think is doing the right job. But what's interesting is then the other side of it was like, well, this was a contract that was going to help families the most. So now we're impacting families the most. But again, this is part of the transparency conversation. Where's the rest of the money that Salvation Army is getting going then? And like how I feel like council just had to say, just reading from Councilwoman Lewis's comments, because a lot of this is her district, was just like, we're just tired of not knowing or not getting clear answers on the security issues at shelters, the murders that happened. And we had to put our foot down and say, okay, we're not going to fund this anymore until we figure it out.
You're talking about the last March double homicide at the former Doubletree Hotel off I-70. And then there was more recently, another issue. These are just one-offs, though. You know, we don't know the full picture about crime. There was another issue where there was some assault. I think it was an employee of Salvation Army. Had a history.
And I feel like those are the big stories, but there probably is more day-to-day conversations that Chantel Lewis is having with probably her constituents and things about concerns, because again, this is in her district. Like she worked for Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. I would say she's pretty qualified to understand how these places function and where this money might be going. But again, this goes back to the transparency conversation.
Yep.
Right. Councilwoman Chantel Lewis was fire in speaking Monday evening city council hearing. And what you see is someone who cares greatly about all constituents in her district, including unhoused people. And this is also someone who worked with Mayor Johnston from the very beginning to say, okay, let's partner on getting people off the street and into housing. So in other words, she did her part in being collaborative.
She has good intentions. Everyone has good intentions.
Well, but what I'm saying is for her, again, as part of the progressive wing on city council, to work with this mayor on a plan that wasn't fully, baked in, right? But she also raised flags early on to say, I do not want poverty concentrated in my council district. And I'm doing this with the agreement that these tiny homes at the time, and then they shifted to these motels and hotels, would be spread across the city. That never happened, right? So poverty and homelessness was then concentrated in her district. And she tried to get this information over and over again from Cole Chandler, and she even talked about how from the Salvation Army staff that they were discouraged from contacting her and communicating with her about the problems.
Interesting.
Yes. So again, this is someone who was looking at comprehensive solutions, was being a team player because it benefited her district and her constituents. And for her to say enough is enough, right? The alleged sexual assaults that happened was, for someone who may not have been well vetted, that was another problem with the Salvation Army. And, let's be real here. The Salvation Army has been a problem for a long time. So I was surprised by the vote count as well, because these were not new issues for the Salvation Army.
Something changed.
Yeah, something changed with what? Yeah, with the council people, like I would think like Amanda Sawyer or somebody, or just like people that have not voted on the side of the more progressive folks when it comes to the homelessness issues. I found really fascinating.
In the last 3 years, Salvation Army has gotten $274 million in contracts since 2021, according to the Denver Gazette.
So, Lisa, my question for you as someone that's worked within an you worked with Councilwoman Sayeda part of the criticisms I've heard is there's no other options. Salvation Army is this large provider. Colorado Coalition for the Homeless is this large provider. Smaller providers can't tackle this problem. What do we do? So if we don't sign on with another contract with Salvation Army, what would be the other solution?
Yeah, this was a huge problem when I was chief of staff for Councilwoman Candice Baca. And we, early on, we took a tour of the Salvation Army and other homeless providers. And that Salvation Army facility down in what is referred to often as Lodo was like a dungeon. I was appalled at the conditions and the fact that there were mats on the floor and all of that. And then Britta Fisher, who was the head of Host,
which is the city's homelessness office at the time.
Right. And now she's a head of the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, had said that, she wanted to essentially move away from Salvation Army contracts because everybody knew the problems with Salvation Army. And also at the time, there was that controversy around how they were treating LGBTQ folks, both as clients and as staff, and the discrimination against that, right? So they had to change some of their policies. But this is an open secret about how bad it is with Salvation Army. My mother actually used to work for Salvation Army. And the treatment of staff was terrible. They have this whole weird ranking system of, sergeants or captains or whatever. And it is very much a religious organization. And not that they can't do that kind of work, but there's this hierarchy that is not always fair and is discriminatory. So again, this is not new. So it did surprise me, that 10-1 vote. And it was like, how much did it take city council to finally say no?
Yeah.
And then just finally, it's absolute nonsense that Salvation Army is like being treated like too big to fail, and we cannot, bust up the contracts. We do need to give these contracts to smaller providers because this population needs more intensive services. And that requires smaller caseloads, better trained staff, and better paid staff.
And a wider variety, I think, of services. But it sounds like this would take like a massive reorganization of how the city handles these contracts, because if you're going to take a contract from Salvation Army and split it up amongst, I don't know, the Gathering Place, the Dolores Project, Urban Peak, all these smaller organizations, it's going to take a lot of work. And I just feel like maybe that's what needs to happen.
There's another option. There's another idea.
Okay, Paul, let's hear it.
I'll tell it to you. I feel like I've sensed this growing. This is part of the Democratic divide conversation. There's this new idea out there that Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson are pushing about abundance and how liberal-led American cities have been on the decline because they're liberals, crime, blah, 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 not good places to do business, economies are tanking, et cetera. And they're like, the future of the Democratic Party needs to be about abundance, which to them is like pro-business, pro-supply, YIMBY, deregulate, less social services. This perhaps could be Denver's future. Don't sign new contracts. We admit we've been pissing millions away on this to no good effect. Stop doing it. What if we do nothing?
That's what you got?
That's another idea. Yeah, that's another proposal.
To do nothing?
Yeah, or just stop trying so hard. Stop spending so much. Bet on the economy, strengthen business, jobs.
I understand the argument of that we may be wasting money, but to me, government efficiency should always be on the table. We should always be asking questions about how our dollars are being spent, right? This is part of this whole conversation around transparency. But it is not an option to do nothing, to let, families and children and babies languish in the street. That is not the sign of a successful city, right? There's been a saying about a city should be measured on how well it treats its most vulnerable, right? That should be the success measurement. So we should be making investments in taking care of the people who come here. That said, how that money is being spent still needs to be accounted for, right? So this is not a one or the other to me. And we should be compassionate. We should care about how we're caring for our most vulnerable residents. I will never give that up as an aspiration.
We're going to another break. Wins and fails are next. All right, we're back. Best way to end the week. My favorite segment, wins and fails, AKA Rocky Mountain highs and lows. I just slipped out of my mind for a second. Normally I do it on autopilot.
Welcome back, Paul.
Thanks. Rocky Mountain highs and lows. Each of us brought a recent local something we think is a win and one we think is a fail, and we're going to talk about them. Fails are first. Bree.
As usual, this is just where I use this space to be in memoriam for someone in the city that we've lost.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Brian Vogt, that was the CEO of Denver Botanic Gardens, passed away this week. I knew him peripherally. One of my close family friends worked for him for a very long time. Wonderful man. But he did a lot over his almost 20 years to make the Denver Botanic Gardens more accessible to folks. And I just think it was a great loss for the community. He was the one that created this program that chartered shuttles to neighborhoods like mine to bring kids to the Botanic Gardens. He expanded what they do at Chatfield Farms. He built the science pyramid. How you feel about that? Maybe I have an opinion about it.
Wait, what's the science pyramid?
It's inside of the Botanic Gardens. It's like this crazy pyramid.
Oh.
You've probably seen. But
I like it okay.
He ushered in a lot of really interesting things to change up and diversify how the gardens was used. And it's just one of those positions where you can just sit back and let it run. Like everybody's going to go to the Botanic Gardens. Their shows sell out every year. You don't have to do anything. But I think he was a really interesting innovator in the space and brought some really cool stuff to Denver. And so just thoughts to Brian's family and all of the folks that worked for him for a long time. Because I would also say I know a lot of folks that have worked at the Botanic Gardens forever. And that to me says leadership is probably doing a pretty good job. So
yeah, where I grew up, there was no Botanic Gardens. That was not a thing. That was not a city. Like here, it's like you got the zoo, you got
it's one
the
of the
Botanic
big
Garden.
five.
It's like it's a great one.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. They do an awesome job. Love it every time I go.
So
credit to him.
yeah,
Shout
out to
Great
Brian
one.
Vogt.
Lisa, do you want to go?
Sure. A fail that I don't think any other media outlet is covering yet. So
exclusive.
Exclusive. Denver Police Department are quietly rolling out what they call education-based discipline. And exactly.
What is that?
It is that if officers commit some kind of infractions, so they have a list of examples of infractions, rather than essentially being held accountable through the traditional channels, they can write a book report, for example. Yes, this is a real thing.
On their actions or like Catcher in the Rye?
Who knows, Paul, but maybe they'll take your suggestion when you're added to the strike force.
I got ideas,
Yeah, no, it's a little crazy that they're not sharing this with the public because this is a major shift in police discipline. And it came from LA County under Sheriff Baca, who some may remember around 2014 was indicted and I believe convicted on felonies for abusing inmates and trying to cover it up and hiding informants. That's the model Denver is now using to say, hey, it's been used since 2009. They won't go into details about how it was used back then. To say that, and they're throwing in this whole evidence-based phrasing, which we know then becomes just a catch-all for, hey, we can do this because there's some evidence behind it. There's nothing evidence-based that we've been able to determine in using this. So it's a problem and it's concerning, and they should be transparent that they are shifting to this education-based discipline, including for anger management problems by police officers.
And
interesting.
I think we should remember at one point in the last decade, Denver was one of the most expensive police forces in the country for payouts around brutality issues. So
correct. And they're still paying out millions. And again, shout out to Councilwoman Chantel Lewis, who keeps a running tab of how much Denver is paying out in the millions in police brutality lawsuits.
Well, just write a book report about it.
Right. There you go.
To do.
That is fascinating. I want to learn everything about that.
Okay, good.
Paul.
My fail is, I joked about this earlier, the portrait at the Capitol, the Trump portrait.
Oh, geez.
I guess we can talk about it more. I don't know if I have that much to say, except Democrats, people are looking for something to cheer for right now, right? Why take it down? You guys control the building, right? Why take it down?
I took from the Democrats' statement, like, do whatever you guys want. We have bigger fish to fry. That was what I took from it. I think there's some bigger problems in this world.
Would you have taken it down, Lisa?
And it wasn't even a Democratic portrait. It was a Republican portrait. And I'd be like, Republicans, if you don't like it, you take it down. You pay $10,000 for this.
You guys do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
Who cares?
Exactly.
My thing is like, it is now much more valuable because he has commented on it. It is now the portrait of him that he doesn't like. And that is historic. And it is going to be sitting in some dusty back room at History Colorado.
Yeah, I was like,
auction it off. Sell it. I want it.
And shouldn't the president of the United States be worried about other things?
Well,
his portrait in the Colorado. I mean, come on.
We know what he's like. This is what he's like. This is who he is.
We've accepted this behavior from an adult man.
Oh my gosh.
In one of the most powerful positions in the world, Lisa.
Once again, I know.
Yeah, that's my fail. Lisa, do you want to start with a win?
I want to start with a win that it's more broad, and that is that in light of all of the protests that have been going on around Trump and immigration, and so at Women Uprising, we have been gathering women ever since the election, virtually first, and just having these once a month discussion chats around not just how horrible policies have shifted, but then also inspiration. And so we've been hearing from a lot of women in politics about what they are doing to make life better. And so my shout out is to those women who are not giving up, who are saying there are things that we can do to improve our lives and our communities. And we're doing it. We're actually having a training at the end of April for people who want to be politically engaged. And so I would say, go to womenuprising.org. And, it's good to see people still in the fight, not be totally feeling like there's no hope for the next 4 years.
It's hard to run on anger. Like, it's hard to build on that. And I think a lot about the great Adrienne Marie Brown's book on pleasure politics and the politics of keeping joy in activism and how important it is to stay focused, but also realize you have to be working towards something for the greater good that feels good as well, or it's like really hard.
Exactly.
So that's awesome.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
That sends me back to the Bernie rally. That sends me back to the Trump rally. Like, who was having a better time?
Well, I mean, yeah.
People at the Trump rally were having a good time.
Oh, I'm sure they were.
Yeah, it was like, it felt like more of a tailgate though. Like, oh, well, I don't, yeah.
Were people having a good time at the Bernie rally?
Well, you couldn't bring anything in with you. So it wasn't like they were tailgating at the Trump rally. You couldn't we even saw a guy chugging his yerba mate before he went in because he couldn't bring it in with him. So it's a little hard to party on water. I mean, I'm a sober person and it's difficult. But
we talked about some people smoking weed. I thought the people were having an okay time. I don't know. Music, I thought the show was good.
Well, I have mixed feelings about the rally. I thought that it was... I was really looking forward to AOC's speech as a woman of color and seeing her come through with all odds against her to really then flip the switch and talk about how great our Congress people from Colorado were, including Bennett and Hickenlooper. Like, that's not the progressive speech that I was waiting to hear. On the other hand, I thought Bernie gave a very rousing speech because he really did talk about both parties and the billionaires in both parties and how we need to get back to the working people. I think people need to hear that now. They need to see people fighting for them. And so whenever we can have that happen, I'm for it.
Her message was definitely unity. And his message was his message.
Same message he's been having for 60 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying it's a bad
99%.
thing. He's just like, I'm still telling you guys, here's the problem.
And he's consistent.
Yeah. Paul, what's your win?
I got one quick win for friend of the show, Josh Emerson, and filmmaker Gabriel Furman. I watched the short film that they made with a bunch of really talented collaborators, and then we had a conversation about it at the Holiday Theater on Tuesday. It went really good. Movie was awesome. I was so excited to be around talented people. It's called Finding the Funny.
That's right.
They're doing the short festival circuit, so there might be some more chances to see it sometime. Thought it was great. But my win is for one of my favorite chefs in town, Jose Avila.
Oh, sure.
Of La Diabla in Lodo. Love that place. Killer happy hour deal. Vegan pozole, great. But he is doing something interesting. He's wanted to open his, he does this like smoked sheep, like overnight. He'll smoke a sheep. It's called El Borrego Negro. He used to do it outside of I've talked about this on the show. I'm sorry if this is again, but it's on Westwood. There's some community center, a commissary kitchen. He used to do it. He stopped doing it, but he's redoing it as a food hall thing. Did you all see this news?
No.
I did. I was excited too. And
Right?
part of the reason I was excited is like, it's like no frills. Like it's about the food. It's about the traditions of Mexican food. I'm half Mexican. Like good bowl of pozole at any time.
Hell yeah.
It was refreshing from hearing of restaurant closures, from those with trying to do too much, to just get back to the food of the people. Right. This is food I grew up with, and it's
food court
affordable.
setting?
A food court setting?
Yeah, exactly.
Where? Do you know where?
Right next door to the old place.
Oh, okay.
In the ballpark area.
Because he's making tortillas too that are like have this special recipe and all of that. So I can't wait.
Dude is a
Making me
rock star.
So hungry.
But here's what my win is for. Not just the great new thing, but it's Jose working around the regulations. Because when I saw this, I was like, we've been having this conversation about tipping. And I talked to Johnny Curiel at Alma Fondafina about this. He said he's opening a new place and he's worried about it because his old places were all chef's counter, which means the chef is in the front getting the tips. And that model has worked for them very well, but the new place is traditional service. So now they're going to be much more exposed to the tipping situation. So Jose Avila, this new food hall thing, same thing. That's what I was like. Think about the labor costs.
Yeah.
He's innovating, smart.
By running a food hall version. That's
Big
interesting.
win. Big win for Chef Avila.
Good. Yes.
Yay. More good food in the city.
Bree, did we get yours?
No, you didn't.
Let's get yours.
Well, this news came about when I was actually in Miami, but it's really exciting to me. They are installing speed cameras on Federal and Alameda. And these are the two main streets that I drive every single day, and they're extremely dangerous. 7 people died and nearly 40 were injured on them in 2024 alone. These are all preventable deaths. And so this was not surprising information to me at all. They've clocked folks going 60 miles an hour on Federal when the speed limit is posted at 35. That is pretty much the normal behavior. So while I am not a fan of surveillance or snitching, I am stoked that
Bree, anti-snitching.
I am an anti-snitch. Everybody knows this, but like, if we're just like, if we're not pulling people over, we're not entangling them in this system. If you're just getting a ticket for speeding, please, yes, anything we can do to slow our streets down. It's the one thing about my neighborhood that I don't love is people drive terribly, and this might be something that starts to change that. So I tend to shout out Department of Transportation and Infrastructure a lot, but you guys are doing a great job.
I love the way that you shout them out when there is good news about it, because we talk so much about the tough stuff.
Yeah, and they do good things. And I think that they've installed some of those, like, you're going this certain miles an hour signs everywhere. I don't know. Do people care about that? I watch people speed right, but I watch people speed through school zones, so I don't think they care. But these will actually just like send you a $40 ticket. So maybe if you get like 6 $40 tickets, you'll stop driving 60 miles an hour down Federal. Is my hope. So seems good.
I'm pro snitch for the record.
You are.
Snitch to me.
This is really another
Snitch to
line
me.
between us.
So I may be the unusual one on the couch because I'm not for more ticketing, but I am for obviously more safety because ticketing can lead to more criminal justice system debt.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I also get like what needs to work on Federal, right?
Right.
It's built for speed practically.
Right.
And so what do we need to do in terms of environmental design, disincentivizing people to speed? And I think you're right. Like probably the people who are going the fastest are the ones who live in the neighborhoods, who are there,
I
right?
mean, it's a street race. Both of those are street racing regularly. I mean, literally, you can sit on my porch and hear it all day and all night long. It's like 2 trucks get up at the light and then just like gun it. And I think about there's all this work that they're trying to do with the International District, with the Far East Center to get more folks out into the street. And also, I will give my neighborhood credit, regardless of how crappy those streets are, people still gather on the streets. They still sell things. There's still tons of great food trucks. I've been seeing this awesome mom who's been selling cotton candy every weekend on the corner. Like, I just want her to be able to do that more safely. Yeah. And I'm with you. I don't want to entangle people in the system, but like, how do we get you to slow down?
Exactly. Yeah.
Built for speed.
It
interesting.
is. Yeah, it's a highway. They're both highways.
Yeah.
Well, that's all for today here on CityCast Denver. Our producers this week were Olivia Jewel Love and me, Paul Karolyi. Peyton Garcia writes our morning newsletter normally, but this week was McKenna Harford's first week. She's been doing a great job. Subscribe now. Bree Davies is our host. Our music is by Los Mocochetes with additional mixing by Tyler Lindgren. Thanks to the guys at Dude IDK, Nick and Jacob. Thanks, fellas. If you haven't already, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, including now YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at CityCast Denver. Yes, Bree?
Give Abby Madigan.
Oh, Abby Madigan does social media now.
We have if you've noticed, our social media's gotten awesome.
It's good now.
Because we have somebody doing it.
It's good now.
Olivia was doing a good job creeping it along.
Sporadically.
While she was actually doing her other job. But now we have a professional, Abby Madigan. So thank you.
Yeah, it was good. It was sporadic. We didn't have enough. Now we have lots.
So,
tell a friend next time you see him. Who should we tell? Who should we tell about this one? Who should hear this one, Lisa?
Ooh, who did
the Strike Force.
The Strike Force. Tell the Strike Force about us.
Drop that in the group chat.
Next time you see it. Absolutely. You can sign up for that daily newsletter. Learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. Lisa Calderón, Bree Davies, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Lisa.